As we enter a phase of life marked by decades of labor, family responsibilities, and fulfilling obligations, whether transitioning into well-deserved retirement or simply carving out time for ourselves, we realize that life isn't an endless pursuit of more, but rather the art of choosing what's best. However, there's an unspoken truth. Living better sometimes means letting go. It's not about cramming more activities into our lives, but shedding unnecessary burdens, habits, beliefs, and pressures that no longer serve us. This overview will explore 9 things to consider relinquishing after the age of 60. It's not about dwelling on past mistakes, but striving for greater joy, peace, and freedom. These conclusions are based on years of conversations with people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond, who have shown what it means to live a full life. The final point could fundamentally change how you perceive each new day. First and foremost, we must break free from the habit of excessive saving, dictated by a fear of the future. At first glance, this may seem counterintuitive, as thriftiness has been ingrained in many from a young age. We're taught to set aside funds for unexpected circumstances, well-deserved retirement, and all sorts of life events. For a significant portion of our lives, this approach proves beneficial. However, with age, especially after 60, such fear-based saving begins to restrict and limit opportunities. To clarify, the purpose of saving is to ensure a decent future, to create a foundation for the life you dream of in the long run. It's a tool for preparing for the years ahead. But what happens when that later has arrived, when you've accumulated enough to live comfortably? There are many instances where people, having secured their financial needs, still fear every expense. I've personally encountered this. I once met a man who had over $2 million in his retirement accounts. He had no debts, his home was fully paid off, and these funds were more than enough for a comfortable old age. Yet every time his wife suggested a trip, buying a recreational vehicle, or simply dining at a nice restaurant, he felt anxious. He would ask, "What if something unexpected happens? What if we need this money in the future?" To this, I reasonably pointed out, what if you never have to use it? What if that later never comes in the way you imagine it? This question gave him pause, and perhaps it will make you think as well. The importance of financial prudence is undeniable, but there comes a time when you must confidently look at the life you've built and allow yourself to enjoy its fruits. This means guiltlessly embarking on exciting adventures, acquiring things that bring you joy, and creating precious memories. Of course, this isn't a call for reckless spending, but with a well-thought-out plan and your basic needs met, your savings are meant for more than just emergencies. They serve to enrich your life, strengthen bonds with loved ones, and bring happiness. Instead of constantly worrying about running out of money, ask yourself what you truly want to spend your money on while you still have the chance. The time for living is now, not in some uncertain future. You must reassess your spending and eliminate expenses that don't bring satisfaction. After a certain age, it's especially important to avoid unnecessary spending on things that don't bring joy. Before making a purchase, ensure that it's directed toward acquiring something truly valuable. Often, people give in to habits and make purchases automatically out of guilt or obligation. They strive to maintain a certain image, please others, or fill an inner void they haven't addressed. However, if you honestly examine your expenses, you'll find that only a small portion brings true happiness. I once spoke with a woman approaching 80 who shared that in previous years, she had mindlessly spent vast sums on clothes that gathered dust in her closet, unnecessary gifts given out of obligation, and trendy gadgets bought simply because they were on sale. However, her fondest memory was a spontaneous trip to visit her sister for her birthday, costing $600. That weekend, the sisters laughed heartily, shared intimate thoughts, and reminisced about the past late into the night. These priceless moments meant more to her than all those pointless shopping trips combined. This is the fundamental difference between frivolous spending and investing in one's own happiness. After 60, financial resources should be directed toward what is truly valuable. Perhaps it is travel, which provides new experiences and vivid emotions. Or perhaps it is generous donations to the education of beloved grandchildren, opening up new horizons for them. Or maybe it's weekly dinners with close friends or a comfortable recliner that provides much-needed relief for a tired back. Whatever brings joy and satisfaction is what one should spend their savings on. It is necessary to abandon without regret things that seem burdensome, pointless, or acquired under the influence of a fleeting impulse. One should avoid spending dictated by guilt, fear, or the desire to impress others. Ultimately, no one has the right to demand explanations as to how a person decides to enjoy a well-deserved rest. One should remember that true happiness is not always measured in monetary terms. Often the most valuable moments in life are surprisingly simple. Heartfelt conversations on the porch with loved ones, the warmth of a handwritten letter, walks in nature where nothing distracts from the beauty of the moment. Before parting with money, it is worth asking yourself, does this expenditure bring you closer to the desired life, or is it just a fleeting whim? It is necessary to spend consciously, putting your soul into every purchase. After all, the point is not to have less or more, but to fill life with meaning. In addition, it is important to stop viewing time solely as a means of earning money, especially after reaching a certain age. For many years, time and money have been inextricably linked. A person worked for reward, earned a living by spending hours at work, performing duties, sometimes difficult and ungrateful. This was necessary to build the foundation of life. But a new stage arrives where time becomes the most valuable asset. It is important to honestly ask yourself, does a person continue to work out of love for the Guam or out of fear of inaction? Does work bring satisfaction in a sense of purpose, or does it simply fill a void? One should not assume that the age of 60 automatically means the need to cease working. If work still brings satisfaction, energizes, provides a sense of organization and social connection, then there is no reason to give it up. However, such a decision should be a conscious choice, not dictated by habit or fear of the unknown. As an example, one can cite the story of a high school teacher with more than 30 years of experience. When asked about his retirement plans, he invariably replied that he would continue to teach as long as he loved his job. And indeed, he remained at the school until he was 67, until one day he felt it was time to move on. He left his post with a sense of accomplishment, not with regret for missed opportunities. It is this approach that one would like to wish everyone. At the same time, one cannot fail to notice the other side of the coin. There are people who continue to do a job they don't love simply because they cannot imagine themselves outside of their usual role. They are afraid to slow down the pace of life because they have never allowed themselves to simply enjoy the moment. But it is worth remembering one important truth. Money can always be earned, but time cannot be returned. Every day that passes is an irreversible loss that no salary can compensate for. Therefore, if your professional activity still brings you a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment, continue to work with dignity and pride. However, if work sucks the life out of you, prevents you from realizing your aspirations, and does not allow you to live the life you dream of, perhaps it is time to let it go. For quite some time, you have been exchanging precious hours of your life for money. Now is the time to invest your time in finding meaning and fulfillment. Chapter 4 is devoted to the importance of stopping to postpone experiences. The fourth thing to give up after reaching the age of 60 is the habit of putting off those experiences that you have always dreamed of having. Remember how many times you have said phrases like, "Someday I will definitely go on this trip. Next year I will master this skill. I will start this exciting adventure as soon as everything is settled." But the harsh reality is that someday is not a specific date on the calendar, and for many people, that someday never comes. The author recalls a conversation with a married couple who cherished the dream of traveling across the country in an old Airstream trailer. They had the necessary financial resources and ample free time, yet year after year they would say, "We'll get to it next summer." But one winter, the husband experienced some health issues, not life-threatening, but enough to make them pause and reflect. It was at that moment they realized they had been waiting for some special permission that was never going to arrive. Without wasting any time, they packed their bags, set off on their journey, and 6 months later admitted it was the best decision of their lives. It wasn't that every day of their trip was perfect, but that they finally turned their dream into reality. That's the power of decisive action. And so the question arises, what are you putting off? Is it that long-awaited trip that keeps getting postponed? Or a hobby that's gathering dust in the corner, waiting for its moment? Perhaps it's a visit to an old friend you haven't seen in ages, or a letter you keep meaning to write but can't seem to find the time for. Why not do it right now? You don't need to wait for retirement to start living life to the fullest. Everything doesn't need to be flawless and perfect, and you don't need anyone's approval or permission. Most people realize this only when it's too late. Work can serve as a convenient excuse, routine, a familiar alibi, and even planning can become a way to avoid action. Behind endless waiting often lies a simple fear. Fear of change, fear of trying something new, fear of finally prioritizing yourself. But what if this year you resolutely refuse to wait? What if you give yourself permission to start living here and now, not in 5 years, not when the right time comes, but right now? You're not too old, and nothing is lost yet. You have every right to create memories that feel magical and unforgettable. Regardless of your age, the world is still full of wonders and amazing discoveries. All you need to do is say a firm and confident yes to yourself. Fifth, it's essential to stop ignoring your health. After reaching the age of 60, it's especially important to pay attention to this aspect of life. The author addresses readers with genuine care, understanding the sensitivity of the topic, but considering its discussion crucial. Many people approaching retirement contemplate the number of years they have left to live, 15, 25, or perhaps more. However, a much more important question is how many years of active and healthy life they have remaining. Without good health, without a sense of physical and mental harmony, all material possessions lose their value. It doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank, how many exciting trips you have planned, or how comfortable your home is. If you don't have the strength and desire to enjoy life, everything starts to lose its meaning and slip through your fingers. Let me ask you a question. What would you prefer? To have $20 million but feel sick, tired, and in constant pain? Or to have only $1 million but feel full of energy, strong, and cheerful? Most people, after considering this question, would choose the second option. However, paradoxically, many of us live as if we're striving for the first, neglecting our health in pursuit of material wealth. The good news is that you don't need radical changes to improve your well-being. You don't have to immediately become a marathon runner or switch to a strict diet. It's recommended to start small, such as taking short daily walks. You can replace sugary drinks with water, do morning exercises, or sign up for fitness classes adapted for a specific age group. Even light strength training under the supervision of an experienced instructor can significantly improve coordination, increase energy, and strengthen independence. The point is not to strive for weight loss or eternal youth, but to maintain personal freedom. It's important to be able to actively spend time with grandchildren, travel without discomfort, and wake up full of energy, not exhausted. The human body is a means of transportation through life, and like any vehicle, it requires regular maintenance, servicing, and care. Therefore, it's important to take care of yourself. Schedule that doctor's appointment you've been putting off, take your first walk around the neighborhood, and cook at least one healthy meal this week. Health is not about striving for perfection, but a continuous movement forward. And the best time to start this journey is right now. The sixth important change in life after 60 is letting go of obsessive thoughts about what others think. It's undeniable that a significant part of life is shaped by external expectations. People strive to be exemplary parents, devoted employees, loyal friends, adhering to accepted norms, and following prescriptions. However, there comes a moment when you need to ask yourself, who am I living for right now? An example is the story of a client, a woman approaching her 60s with a long-standing passion for art. She had always dreamed of taking drawing lessons, but she was plagued by doubts. She tormented herself with questions. What if I fail? What if others think it's ridiculous? at my age. And so, that very question became the starting point. She decided and signed up for classes which radically changed her life. Not because she gained fame as an artist, but because she finally allowed herself to do what brings her true pleasure, without excuses or explanations. It is important to realize that with age comes more and more freedom to ignore outside noise. If you want to wear bright clothes, go for it. If you feel like traveling alone, don't deny yourself. If family gatherings only cause fatigue and emptiness, then you have every right to say no. It's not about being rude or selfish, but about striving for an authentic life, so that in the future you won't be tormented by regrets about missed opportunities. The book created by hospice nurse Bronnie Ware reveals the most common regrets of people on the threshold of eternity. The most bitter of them is the unfulfilled dream of a life lived by one's own rules, and not to please other people's expectations. This realization should deeply penetrate everyone's soul, because a long life, subordinated to other people's standards, leads to a gradual disappearance from one's own life. Therefore, it is worth freeing yourself from pressure, from the obsessive need to impress. You need to say what you really think, do what you love, and allow yourself to be seen in all your fullness, honesty, and beauty as you really are. Every person is unique, and it is never too late to assert yourself in your own life. Another important recommendation for those who have crossed the 60-year mark is to limit the consumption of negative news, or at least not do it every day. At first glance, this may seem unexpected, but the author explains that it is not about burying your head in the sand and ignoring what is happening. Being aware of events is necessary. It is part of a conscious civic duty. However, there is a huge difference between being informed and emotionally absorbing negativity. Immersing yourself daily in the newsfeed, whether through television channels or online publications, a person risks feeling like the world around them is plunging into chaos. This continuous flow of stress, anxiety, and fear has a devastating effect on the body, clouds the mind, and deprives one of peace of mind. It is rare to find someone who would argue that they feel better after watching the news for many hours. Much more often, you can hear stories about how giving up constant news monitoring has positively affected mental health, improved mood, and restored hope and peace. The fact is that the main goal of most news programs is not to inform, but to retain the viewer's attention. And fear is a powerful tool for achieving this goal. It is important to realize where a person's attention is directed, especially with age, when it becomes clear that attention is one of the most valuable resources. There is a choice. Focus on the negative aspects of life or on what is still beautiful. There is still kindness in the world. There are people doing good deeds. There is a place for music, laughter, learning, growth, and love. Therefore, while staying informed, it is important not to allow it to disrupt your peace of mind. It is necessary to set boundaries for the information consumed, turning off the television when necessary, and preferring stories that inspire optimism. You should choose sources that value intelligence, not exploit fears. It is important to ask yourself questions. Did watching this information help me take constructive action? Did it improve my life? Or does it just make me feel helpless? After a long life, everyone deserves more than just living in fear. People deserve peace, joy, and the opportunity to direct their energy to what is really controllable. The eighth important aspect to give up after 60 is neglecting your financial plan, but also over-fixating on it. A delicate balance is required here. On the one hand, there are those who completely avoid issues related to finances, justifying the complexity of the topic or postponing it for later. However, the truth is that avoiding financial planning doesn't solve the problem. It only exacerbates it in the shadows of uncertainty. In the period after 60, the question of rational personal finance management becomes particularly acute. It's crucial to clearly understand how your money works and what it's being spent on. You need to determine the amount of monthly income you'll need for a comfortable life. You should also consider scenarios in case of declining health and provide financial protection against unforeseen circumstances. You don't have to be a financial guru to do this, but having a clear plan is essential. Such a plan will be the key to your peace of mind and confidence in the future. However, there's another extreme. People who are overly fixated on their finances. Perhaps you yourself belong to this category. They meticulously analyze every dollar spent, wondering about the tax implications of even minor expenses, such as a vacation. They are willing to sacrifice the joys of life for the sake of numbers in a spreadsheet. But that's the main problem. After all, savings and investments were created not just to admire the numbers on the screen, but to live a full life. Therefore, it's certainly necessary to consult with specialists and regularly check the status of your accounts to ensure that your basic needs are being met. But after that, it's worth letting go of the situation and allowing money to fulfill its main function, to support your life, not control it. A well-crafted financial plan should instill confidence and allow you to say yes to life, rather than constricting you with fear and uncertainty. The author of these lines once shared this thought with a client, and it fundamentally changed his attitude toward finances. After all, the sign of an excellent retirement plan is not only an impressive balance in the account, but also a fulfilling, happy life. Get rid of the fear of finances that paralyzes you and prevents you from moving forward. Stop letting anxiety dominate your money matters. Start viewing finances as a powerful tool that can help you create the life you dream of. Make informed decisions that bring you joy and bring you closer to your goals. Relinquish the illusion that you have an eternity ahead of you. This advice is not dictated by a desire to frighten you, but by a desire to encourage you to live a richer life. By the age of 60, many of us have already faced losses. Parents, siblings, friends, loved ones pass away. In these moments of grief comes the realization that life is not endless. We all know this in theory, but we continue to postpone important things for later, waiting for the right moment. But the truth is that no one knows how much time they have left. This is what makes every day precious. It's helpful to ask yourself, if you knew for sure that this was your last year, what would you change? Who would you call? What would you say? What would you stop putting up with? What would you finally start doing? Most people quickly find answers to these questions, but then return to their former lives as if nothing had happened. In this regard, a logical question arises. What prevents a person from realizing everything conceived? There's no need to wait for a fateful diagnosis or a turning point to realize the value of every moment. Awakening can happen today, with the arrival of a deep understanding of how fleeting and at the same time beautiful life is. Perhaps it's time to forgive an old offender, start keeping a personal diary, plan a long-awaited trip, sign up for courses of interest, create a cozy garden, or say the cherished words of love before the moment is irretrievably lost. Of course, it's impossible to grasp the immense in one day, but it's important to take the first step. After all, the point is not to live in constant fear of the end, but to treat life with due respect, to cherish this unique and unrepeatable gift that a person possesses. While there is breath, while there is today, that is enough to stop postponing life for later and start living for real. So, we're talking about 9 things to give up after crossing the 60-year mark. And it's not about mistakes made, but about the well-deserved right to live more consciously, freely, and easily. Letting go is not a sign of defeat, but a way to free up space for new opportunities, for peace, joy, and presence in the present moment, for what really matters. Today we conducted an important analysis of our life attitudes. It's time to reject the fear of spending that constrains us, because reasonable investments in ourselves and our goals are the fuel for moving forward. Avoid meaningless expenses that don't bring sincere joy, because money is a tool, not an end in itself. Don't let routine work drain your life energy, especially if your experience and knowledge are worth much more. Don't put off the bright moments and experiences that make your heart beat faster, because they are what fill life with meaning. Taking care of your health is not a whim, but a necessity, because your body is your most valuable asset, the foundation for all achievements. Free yourself from the shackles of public opinion, because other people's views are just noise against the backdrop of your unique life. Protect yourself from the flow of negative information that poisons the mind and deprives you of energy. Don't let financial worries paralyze you, but don't forget about reasonable budgeting. And most importantly, let go of the illusion of endless time. The truth is that you only have here and now, and that's enough to start moving towards your dreams. Before we say goodbye, let me ask you one intimate question. What are you willing to give up today to become happier and more fulfilled? Think about it for a moment. And if you feel the strength in you, share your thoughts in the comments. Perhaps your example will inspire someone else to make important changes in their life. This message is addressed to each of you. If it touched the strings of your soul, reminded you of your value, wisdom, and limitless possibilities, share it with loved ones. A friend, brother, sister, spouse, those who especially need support and a reminder of their own strength right now. The authors are convinced that maturity is not a period of decline, but a unique opportunity to unlock your potential in its entirety, like never before. They express sincere gratitude to the audience for their time, attention, and trust. First of all, they thank you for reminding the world by your example. It is never too late to start living a life filled with deep meaning, close connection with others, and sincere joy. The authors look forward to meeting you again in the future to continue inspiring and supporting each other on this path.